Why does an employee ownership transition come about? Now, sometimes it's an employee-driven transition where the employees say, well, we want to take over ownership of this business. But more often it's actually an owner-driven transition where the owner's thinking about succession and they're thinking, right, I've got a certain vision as to where I want this company to go when I'm no longer the owner, so I want to do something about that. Or it's a sort of hybrid, where maybe the owner has the vision, but it's the employees that drive it, or maybe, in fact, it was an advisor who triggered the discussion that made the owner think about the transition. But the origin of the transition can affect the structure that it takes, because if it's the owner's vision, the owner or the owners at the start, they own 100% of the business, they can, to an extent, dictate exactly what it looks like. And you can have quite owner-controlled transitions. And I would say that the majority of the ones we work on, the owners have a significant role in what's going on. But if the employees are driving it, particularly if the employees are putting in cash, then you often find that the employees are actually in more of a driving seat, because there's maybe more of a commercial negotiation taking place between an owner and an employee group who are if we're going to put money in, we want perhaps more of an arm's length commercial terms transaction. But the advisors have a big role in it in terms of where the idea comes from, whether it's how the parties become aware of it in the first place. We've certainly had transactions come to us because, my accountant mentioned that they were at a seminar a couple of years ago on employee ownership, and that sounds like the kind of thing I might be interested in. Cooperative Development Scotland has a huge role in Scotland. We do work across the UK, but I would say probably about half our projects are north of the border. And that's, I think, a large part of that is due to the work that Sarah and the team do up here, because they do a great job at actually spreading the knowledge. Because one of the big obstacles we have for businesses and business owners is they just don't know this is an option that exists. And we're not saying that everybody should go down the employee ownership path, but just have it on your list of things to consider and see if it's for you. But there's also a big role for the sector, especially as the sector continues to grow, because one thing you find is that the sector is incredibly supportive of other businesses thinking about going down that path themselves. And one thing that owners and employees and organisations thinking about going through one of these transactions find very powerful is actually talking to other businesses that have gone through it. Because sometimes, I can talk about, however many transactions we've been involved in and our own employee-owned structure, but in the back of the mind, I'm always thinking, this guy's an advisor and he's going to be sending me a bill at some point, so maybe he's just telling me what I want to hear. But actually, if they go and speak to other organisations, and their doors are surprisingly open for this, that it really helps get people comfortable. And it's not a panacea. There can be challenges to face when you're going through any ownership transition, whether it's employee ownership, management buyout, or the like. But being able to hear it from someone who's maybe been through it in another organisation can be very powerful. And it's that you get a lot of people in this sector who are very comfortable with providing that support on just, come down, spend a day in the factory, in the office, speak to some people, or some businesses I do almost like day-long workshops I've seen where they'll actually get people in and take them through a whole structured day to say, this is how we do it here. There are some quite evangelical organisations in the sector as well who perhaps go above and beyond, but it's something that actually is a real benefit to people thinking about this transaction, or indeed people who've gone through the transaction and are then wanting to find out what happens next.